All right. So you got synth, right?
Yes, we do.
You got piano. Okay. I can't wait for my demo.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I just had to give myself an external speaker amp.
So, is it amplified in the room with a speaker? Is your mic going to pick that up?
Probably, but it would be right now if it was a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have too much of a problem with it.
Okay. Cool.
No, that actually sounds really good. I
Yeah.
figured you'd have like echo or reverb kind of
That's
sound.
what I was worried about was like feedback.
No.
Yeah, but no, it sounds good, dude.
Cool. No, it's pretty quiet. There's no reason for me to have it loud. I know what I'm doing. I just would prefer to hear it because it's cool.
Okay, so full disclosure, I have a ton of notes about this album. There's no way that I'm going to get through it all. So yes, that's what I want to hear, Drew. Since this is something of a is this like your favorite album of all time or your favorite artist of all? I know you're a big Floyd guy.
Yeah, I've always shied from answering those questions of favorite artists of all time or albums, but man,
it's in the top for you, right? They're one of your favorites.
Always. And man, digging in on this one, I'm like, I think it might be my favorite album of all time. Yeah. I'm inspired right now to I'm planning to write an album in the next year with my band, but like right now I'm inspired to take a different turn of it. Just revisiting all this stuff I used to obsess.
Go Froggy.
Well, not style wise, because we finally have kind of found our style. We're finding it, our original style, what works. But just the process, the process of this record is wild. Anyway, we got to save that for the pod.
Yeah, absolutely. 100. That's Drew.
That's Ron.
And that's Bert.
And this is the 100 Albums podcast, where we discuss the ins, the outs, and the absurdities of this weird poster that depicts 100 seemingly random albums. Hey, guys.
What's up, Bert?
Run, rabbit, run. Dig that hole. Forget the sun. And when at last the work is done, don't sit down. It's time to record another pod. Welcome to season 3, everybody. Here we are at album number 41. Can you believe this is the start of season 3? Holy cow. As we continue to go through this poster that Drew got from his wife Lisa a couple of years ago, we first went through the whole poster by listening to each album. And once we were done listening to an album, we'd share our thoughts and reactions with each other via video chat. Once we were all done with that, we were like, hey, what's next? Hey, let's do the whole thing again, this time as a podcast. So let's get into this week's album, The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I forgot. Yes, I'm sorry. I forgot about Ryan. So you may notice that Ryan's missing.
He is. And unfortunately, Ryan is normally very on the ball. I mean, like, dude's got a good memory. He remembers all kinds of musical shit. But on this one, he got a little confused. He listened to The Wall. Now those of you
which is also a great Pink Floyd album for the
it is I mean, you can't not say it's a great album, but in preparing, he shaved his chest, and then he really got into the method of
like Bob Geldof did in the movie.
Yep. Thank you.
He was like, it was like, how there are method actors. He was a method podcaster.
Exactly. And so he just went way off in the deep end, and it went a little farther than he wanted. And so he's taken some time off to grow the hairs back. So we look forward to him coming back. We truly do miss you, Ryan, and we support you no matter what you decide,
regardless of the fullness of your chest hair.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. It wasn't pretty.
Hey, now to it. Vibe check, guys. What are your first impressions?
There's no vibe like this vibe.
This is a great album. It's a little long in the tooth for me at some points, but I do enjoy this album.
This is one of those records that when I was growing up, I got into the rap for a hot minute, and
into the rap.
Well, into the rap. Could you sound more square?
You couldn't help it in the era in which we grew up, and so I was pressed by my English teacher and my uncle to leave that business, and by force in a way. But my English teacher gave me this record, and funny story, I didn't even put it on. She gave me this and Anagata-Davida, and I listened to Anagata-Davida religiously. Never put Dark Side of the Moon on. Subsequently, my uncle gave it the cassette tape of it to me for Christmas that year, almost a year later, and I put it on and my head exploded, and the rest is history for me. This is one of my favorite albums, if not my favorite album of all time. I dodged that question, but very into it, and it is just, I think we say the perfect, or they can't be the perfect, but there's not single thing wrong with this album in my mind. So yeah, that's my vibe.
So my vibe is chill. Like, this is like the quintessential album to you put the record on, or you put the CD on or whatever, and you sit back on the couch, do a headphone listen if you can. It's got this great chill vibe to it. Not that everything is low tempo. There are some up tempo things. The prog rock synth vibe to it is really cool. And this is the thing, that even when I heard it for the first time, I think I was like in college when I heard this album for the first time, there are a couple of songs on here that are really funky, like funk on the one. Time. Money. Super funky. They've got these kind of hooky riffs things that happen. For me, because of the first time I think the first time I heard it, or the first time that I listened to it, I should say, it was in college. So it sends me back to like a college dorm room feel, the iconic album cover, which we'll talk about a little bit later, on people's, poster on people's wall in their dorm room. I think, to this day, you see kids. This is the middle-aged guy talking now. You see these kids walking around with Nirvana t-shirts on and Dark Side of the Moon t-shirts on. They've got the prism with the rainbow colors coming through it. So that to me is the imagery that I associate with this album. So
I associate this album with The Wizard of Oz. I did that 3 times in a row one weekend in college. I was actually very surprised, because I'm a skeptical kind of guy, and I was like, there's no way in hell this shit's gonna work. And it is very coincidental to sync it up, Dark Side and The Wizard of Oz. So since then, I can't listen to this album and not have the imagery of The Wizard of Oz in my head. So
I forgot about that.
It's a little weird in Ron's head these days.
Did you do it when you said 3 times in a row? Did you watch the movie with the CD playing 3 times in a row?
Yeah.
Because if you do, we all know that this whole conspiracy came through in the CD era, which was not the media which Pink Floyd put this onto. Right. So, literally impossible for them to have planned it. But if you have a repeating CD machine, I went so far as to let the CD self-repeat, and it goes through 2.5 times through the movie, and it just keeps going. It just keeps having highlights. I mean, colors that they sing at the same time as colors appear on screen. Money, the change in money starts the minute she gets into Oz. If you've done it right, it's wild.
You got to start it on the the third roar of the lion at the MGM logo.
Yeah, and I mean the heartbeat during the Scarecrow or during the Tin Man, it's powerful connections.
Yeah,
stuff that has followed Pink Floyd through their history that they not only deny, but was a big part of this album in their attempts to get out of that indirect mystery. And I mean,
it's funny too. I think it has a lot to do with the people who are listening and trying to make, and we'll talk more about kind of the lore, the the
concept.
Thank you, Drew. The overall kind of what is the concept of this album? A lot of the research I was doing, people were like, well, I think it kind of means this, and another person would say, yeah, but it also kind of means this. So I think people were trying to put something on the album, right? And I think Wizard of Oz was an easy way to be like, although I gotta say, I was thinking about this because I have this association too, Drew, or Ron. You know, who was the first person? Like what stoned guy or gal in the late 70s was like, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to watch The Wizard of Oz, but I'm not going to listen to the Wizard of Oz soundtrack. I'm going to play The Dark Side of the Moon along with it and see what happens. It's like, okay.
I have often thought
What are you
about
smoking, bro?
how that started, and I'm guessing, and here's my guess on this. Someone was high as balls, had that movie on, had had Pink Floyd playing at the same time, and had the sound down on the TV, and it synced up, and they noticed it, and that's how it started. I think it was absolutely.
Do you know what's ironic, Ron? And listeners, you didn't see this, but when Ron said had the sound down, he made a motion like he was adjusting a remote control, which would not have existed in 1977.
Yeah, but this didn't come up then because you've got to have it be playable. You can't flip a record; you'll get off track.
Yeah,
you get off time.
right.
If you don't hit it on that third growl, it's not going to work.
So
And
let's just boil it down to someone was high as
Yes.
shit.
Yes, I mean I think that's a given.
It would definitely lend itself to creative inspiration. I would say that, but I mean, it's direct, man. If you haven't done it, listeners, look it up. I think that there's in this day of 2025, there is definitely got to be a synced up already version of it on YouTube. But I mean, one thing that comes to mind, I've listed a couple, but on the second or third time through the CD, the Lion Witch, or who are the people, the Lion and the Tin Man and Scarecrow, they finally beat the Winkies up and they're hiding in the Winky costumes, and they go to get into the castle to get the witch, and you raise the blade of us and them when he puts the spear up. It's that level of connected. It's wild stuff. Great Gig in the Sky is during the tornado. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah.
You have to know a lot about the album.
It's hard to ignore the absolutely.
You have to know a lot about the album. You have to know a lot about the lyrics. You have to be paying attention, but it is worth doing.
Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about background here.
Can I just say, before I have to interrupt and do it again, I'm going to drop a lot of quotes, and every quote I took is from this amazing book that I've had for a long time. If you're a Pink Floyd fan, called Dark Side of the Moon by John Harris. He put it out in 2005. It is a all-encompassing informational encyclopedia of this record and its processes.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
So background, 1963, Roger Waters, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright met at Regent Street Polytechnic, now known as the University of Westminster, in London. They played in a band called Sigma 6. 1964, the band goes through several name changes, including the T-Set, the Megadeths, with two G's, Meggadath, and the Abdabs. 1965, Syd Barrett joins the group. They settled on the name The Pink Floyd Sound, inspired by blues musicians Pink Anderson and Floyd Council. They then shortened the name to Pink Floyd. I can't tell you guys, as a quick aside, I can't tell you how many times people I have talked to just in regular conversation think that Pink Floyd is a person.
Yeah. By the way, which one's pink?
Yeah. 1966, Pink Floyd becomes a staple in London's underground scene, playing at venues like the UFO Club and the Marquee Club. They became known for experimental, psychedelic music and light shows. 1967, Pink Floyd was signed by EMI Records, and they released the debut single Arnold Lane in March of that year, with a follow-up, See Emily Play, in June, both written by Syd Barrett. By August, they released their debut album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, largely driven by Barrett's songwriting. Late 1967, Barrett begins to suffer from mental health issues and erratic behavior, possibly linked to heavy LSD use. In 1968, David Gilmour is brought in to support Barrett on guitar and vocals. And by March 1968, Barrett officially leaves the band and Gilmour becomes a full-time member.
Well, do you know, once again, referencing our prior life as a bandmates, he didn't officially leave the band. They didn't pick him up for a gig. Like Sid had gone, everybody associates Pink Floyd with heavy drug use. They actually, according to them, I wasn't there. According to them, they were not. But Sid Barrett was a massive experimenter with LSD and acid and stuff, and he just got lost. And so many all the way through their history of Pink Floyd's inspiration, lyrics, and interpretations of things are referencing Sid. He was a huge part to them. He never ever left. They never forgot about him. But he became so bad once they got Gilmour on board. One night they were like, should we bother? Because he would stand on stage, he would put LSD, the story, this wasn't from the book, but lore story, mash up some LSD, put it in his hair with hair gel, and he would stand there on stage underneath the lights, which would melt the hair gel and just come down over his face. And you just stand there strumming one chord out of his mind. And they just couldn't, you can't do that, and they were big. Like, they weren't just a garage band at the time, they were big. And so they just didn't pick them up.
That's powerful imagery, though. You think about like the standing on stage, putting,
and when you watch The Wall, and the guy and Pink has his meltdown, and he becomes melty in his face and pulls it off and becomes it's direct correlation.
Anecdotally, he was 22 during this time. Which I'm not discounting drug use, because, well, let's look at the entire picture. It's absolutely possible. There was supposition that he had mental health issues.
Oh, yes.
Suffered from schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. And when I read that, it was like, you can have substance induced psychosis or those kinds of things. But even if the acid wasn't the culprit and it was just organic mental health, holy shit, is that a rough thing to go through at 22?
Well, and publicly, right? I mean, they weren't, I think, early on, they didn't have the heights that they reached eventually, but still, to be performing in like major clubs in London, right? And have mental health issues, and then layer some drug use on top of that. That's not fun.
One thing in their history that I did find really interesting is they have been business fucking savvy. Their whole career. Like, what was it? God, I always want to say BlackRock, but I know that's not right. They were actually business owners and owned, as members of the band, a sixth of a company with their managers. And so, not only musically highly intelligent, but also from a business perspective, very, very intelligent. And I think that really followed them through their career. So I didn't realize they were that savvy, which is rare for any musical group.
How many times do you hear stories about musicians being taken advantage of? And that kind of stuff? Definitely not the case,
Well, and I don't know if it's hard to say they didn't have that happen to them, but they certainly sung about it. Welcome to the Machine.
Yeah.
Welcome, my son. Welcome to the machine.
Have a Cigar.
Come in here, dear boy, have a cigar. You're gonna go far. You're gonna fly high.
That whole "I Wish You Were Here," ironically, the follow-up album to this album, after they exploded with fame, and so their heads really turned. I mean, they had been strong, but they made Dark Side of the Moon. It changed the world. They got rich, and then they put out this album about the industry because they learned more about it. But they're a little to their business savvy a lot. And one of the ways I've always heard is, we're in prog rock world, actually debatable. Pink Floyd is debatedly just rock, but I'm not going there today. But they're progressive rock without a doubt, in my opinion. Listeners, don't give me an email.
Don't at me.
But
email him.
Yeah, please.
Remember the Beach Boys. Remember the Beach Boys.
100 albums at broduslow.com.
So these guys made records like Uma Guma. They're so experimental. And they would each take a section and do their own thing. And
I mean, I know we're not there yet, but like, I think of Money, which is in 7/4.
Mhm.
I know.
Like what rock artists at any point in rock history are mainstream success, huge like Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
and are doing albums or are doing songs rather that are in just bizarre time signatures. And I
It
say
gets even
bizarre
crazier, that
with
one.
quotes around it, but yeah, exactly.
But
So
yeah, so anyway, they would write these huge songs, not Dark Side of the Moon, but other albums. Metal is another
Mhm.
example.
Yep.
A song that would last an entire side of record. You get paid royalties per song on a record, especially in
Yeah.
the day when there was a standardized set of industry. So that means
Yeah.
you're getting one royalty for one whatever for this
well,
one
and
song.
you're not gonna get commercial airplay with a song that is
Well,
the
no,
entirety
but
of it. You know what I mean?
that wasn't their concern.
No,
But
no, it definitely wasn't.
so they take a song like Echoes from Metal. And break it up and
Yeah.
create multiple basically movements, but their own songs standalone. Adam Hartmother's a better example. And they'll take one song and turn it into 8. So 8 times the royalty
Yeah.
on this huge song they make. It's
Yeah.
wild, interesting, smart stuff for sure.
So after 1968 and onward here, Waters, Gilmore, Mason, and Wright are kind of the lineup. They begin exploring more conceptual and progressive types of music. This lays the groundwork for albums like Metal, that Drew just mentioned in 1971, and then the iconic The Dark Side of the Moon in 1973. So after the release of Metal, the band went on a tour of Britain, Japan, and the United States. In a band meeting at the home of drummer Nick Masons in North London, the bassist Roger Waters proposed that a new album could form part of the tour. Waters conceived an album that dealt with things that, quote, make people mad, as in crazy, focusing on the pressures associated with the band's arduous lifestyle and dealing with the mental health problems suffered by the band's former member, Syd Barrett. They explored a similar idea in 1969 with the concert suite The Man and the Journey. In an interview for Rolling Stone, David Gilmour said, quote, I think we all thought, and Roger definitely thought, that a lot of the lyrics that we had been using were a little too indirect. There was definitely a feeling that the words were going to be very clear and specific. So the band approved of Waters' concept for an album unified by a single theme, and all the members participated in writing and producing material. Waters created demo tracks in a small studio in a garden shed at his home in Islington. Islington? Dark Side of the Moon, a piece for assorted lunatics, as it was then known, was performed for an assembled press on February 17th, 1972, at the Rainbow Theater, more than a year before its release, and was met with critical acclaim. Michael Whale of The Times described the piece as, quote, bringing tears to the eyes. It was so completely understanding and musically questioning. Derek Jewell of The Sunday Times wrote, quote, the ambition of the Floyd's artistic intention is now vast. The tour was praised by the public, and the new material was performed in the same order in which it was eventually sequenced on the album. Pink Floyd's lengthy tour through Europe and North America gave them the opportunity to make improvements to the scale and quality of the performance. They performed in Japan, returned to France in March of that year to complete work on the film, played more shows in North America, then flew to London and resumed recording in May and June. After more concerts in Europe and North America, the band returned to London to complete the album in January 1973. So, the production of The Dark Side of the Moon was recorded at EMI Studios, now known as Abbey Road Studios, in approximately 60 days between May 31st, 1972 and February 9th, 1973. Pink Floyd worked with engineer Alan Parsons, yes, that Alan Parsons of the Alan Parsons Project, who had also worked as the assistant tape operator on their fifth album, Adam Hartmother, in 1970. He had gained experience as a recording engineer on the Beatles albums Abbey Road and Let It Be. The Dark Side of the Moon sessions made use of advanced studio techniques, especially the Studer A80 16-track recorder, and an appreciable advantage over the 8 or 4-track recordings they'd previously made, although the band often used so many tracks that a second-generation copies were still needed to make more space on the available on the tape.
Yeah, so we've actually, let me jump in there because
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a very interesting point. So these guys are experimental. Well, I'll get some more examples of that in a minute, but when it's relevant. But they were limited. It's really important for context to know how limited music was, and you know how unlimited it was becoming because of recording tech. But in a non-digital world, they could only fit so many tracks on a tape because a tape. We know if a tape is side A and side B, there's actually 4 tracks on one of those cassettes because each side has a mono, or each side has a left and right channel, and they're on the one side of the tape, so you flip it and you get the 4. So when you record on a tape like an ADAT machine at a studio or something, the tape only goes forward because you're using all 4 of those tracks in the same direction. So they had used 8-track studios. Now they're up to Abbey Road, I think, was an 8-track. Didn't you say that? It's an 8-track studio.
That's right. Yep.
Because they had also been playing around in another George Martin studio that had 16 tracks and machines, which blew their minds, of course. But when you're having 8 tracks, like we talked about on the Beach Boys, I think there's 4 members of Pink Floyd. That gives each person 2 tracks, quote unquote. That's not enough, especially with an experimental band. So you record, let's say, up to 7 tracks, get the mix you like, and you record all 7 of those tracks on the one track that's left open. You're stuck with that mix, but that's how you get a new set of 6 tracks that are now open. And so that's what you're talking about is, I can't remember the word you use for it, but they call it kind of bouncing colloquially.
Yep.
Anyway.
So depending upon the song, there would be 1 or 2 tracks of guitar, and these would include solo or rhythm guitar parts, 1 track for keyboard, 1 track for bass, and 1 or 2 for sound effects. They had been very, very efficient in the way they worked. The album features a metronomic sound effects during Speak to Me. And tape loops for the opening of Money. Nick Mason created a rough version of Speak to Me at his home before completing it in the studio. The track serves as an overture and contains crossfades of elements from other pieces on the album. A piano chord, replayed backwards, serves to augment the buildup of effects, which are immediately followed by the opening of Breathe. I've got a bunch of stuff here about, sound effects on Money were created by splicing together Waters' recordings of clinking coins, tearing paper, a ringing cash register, and a clicking adding machine, which were used to create a 7-beat effects loop. There's a bunch of stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of blow through some of this. Some of it's interesting. Some of it's just,
I think that's what we're talking about because in very brevity very brevity is splicing, another technique that we tend to ignore that used to have to be a thing. Talking about tape, we're talking about magnetic tape, which is a stretch of, plastic with a bunch of teeny little magnets on it, and that respond to sound just like the cuts in a vinyl record would, and then reproduce that sound over a tape head. And so to get a, let's just do the Money thing. So there's 7 different sounds to make a 7/8 feel. You have to record 7 different sounds. You only have 4 tracks. So you have to record a sound on a chunk of tape and then basically glue it to the next tape, make the tape the right length, the little chunks the right length. Literally, this is how it was done. And you do it in such a way that you can't hear it on a recording. Sometimes you can if you know what you're listening for, but and so that's what he did at home. And then in the studio, they did it differently. I'll get into that later probably.
So Alan Parsons, I read an interview with him on Money. There was tearing paper, throwing coins, all that, a telephone exchange that was 7 samples they made into a continuous loop. And then that became the click track for the rest of the song.
Yeah. I've got here, I thought it was interesting too. The unconventional sounds is kind of what we're talking about. Assistant engineer Peter James running around the studio's echo chamber in On the Run, and a specifically treated bass drum made to simulate a human heartbeat for Speak to Me. On the Run, Time, and Eclipse. Those 4 songs all have that heartbeat to it. That heartbeat is most prominent in the intro and the outro of the album, but it can be heard sporadically throughout the whole album. And that's one of the concept is it's a very human, the human experience, right, as a concept for the album, and thus that heartbeat is kind of a constant throughout the whole record. So
And it provides now you're talking about that. If you flip the record again, you're connecting the two sides
Yep.
through that heartbeat, which
Yep.
will come into play when we talk about the album cover art
Yep.
too.
Well, actually, that's what I've got next in my rundown. Worthy of discussion, the album art, since it is so iconic. Design was inspired by a photograph of a prism with a beam of white light projecting through it and emerging in the colors of the visible spectrum in a 1963 physics textbook. The artwork was created by an associate of Hypnosis, George Hardy. They offered a choice of 7 designs for the album sleeve, but all 4 members of the band agreed that the prism was the best one. Roger Waters said, quote, "There were no arguments. We all pointed to the prism and said, that's the one." The design depicts that same glass prism, dispersing white light into colors, and represents 3 elements: the band's stage lighting, the album lyrics, and Wright's request for simple and bold design. At Waters' suggestion, the spectrum of light continues through the gatefold. So in the original pressing of the record, you had a gatefold opening, like it was twice. Yeah, Drew's holding it up right now for those of us who
Like a
can see
book.
him, which is 2 of us, but it's like a book. And so the spectrum of light continues through the gatefold, much in the same way that the heartbeat continues through the entire album. It's kind of connective tissue.
And on the inside,
And on the inside, yeah.
the green line becomes a heartbeat.
The heartbeat, exactly. And I was just going to added shortly afterwards. The gatefold design also includes a visual representation of the heartbeat sound used throughout the album. And the back of the album cover contains Thorgenson's suggestion of another prism, recombining the spectrum of light to make possible interesting layouts of the sleeve in record shops. The light band,
because you can set them across from each other, and it just makes it straight across the record store window.
That's exactly right. The light band emanating from the prism on the album cover has 6 colors, missing indigo. So if you think of Roy G. Biv, it's missing the eye. Compared with the usual division of visible spectrum into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, inside the sleeve were 2 posters and 2 pyramid-themed stickers. One poster bore the pictures of the band in concert, overlaid with scattered letters to form Pink Floyd, and the other an infrared photograph of the Great Pyramids of Giza, created by Powell and Thorgenson. The band were so confident of the quality of Waters' lyrics that for the first time, they printed them on the album sleeve. They had never before printed lyrics on the jacket. So,
check this out. I've got the sticker.
Get out. So, do you have like an original pressing?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't go so far as to get original pressings, but I'm lucky if I get something with something like this I wouldn't have bought without completion, although it doesn't have the posters in it. But
I got lucky and got an original with both stickers and both posters.
Wow, nice.
I have this on vinyl too, but mine's like a re.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I'll buy those. It's funny. I bought Zeppelin 3 with that because I was giving up trying to find it because I refused to pay the price, only to find out that I already had it. So I have both a new and an old. But
one for the shelf and one for play.
Right. So these are stickers. It's pretty sweet. And the Storm Thorgerson did a lot of their records covers, and Audrey Powell, and they were like, it was cool the story they told about it, because they said, well, sounds like we should put some pyramid pictures from Egypt, and the other guy was like, yeah. And so this sounds like a road trip. So they went down to Egypt. They went wherever to Egypt themselves, and took these pictures, which has got some funny stories with it too. So they're original photographs by them for the cover too. And this whole, just another rock and roll story, this whole image almost got lost because they had already thought through this idea and they were proposing it to a record label, and the record label was kind of like, I don't think so. And they just kind of were sitting on this concept. So this iconic album cover could have been lost to history from some record label that I don't even know if it exists anymore.
Yeah.
Along with the title. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. So, context. Where does this album fit into Pink Floyd's career? Here are the top 5 selling Pink Floyd albums of all time. Number 5, Animals at 66.5 million in 1977. Division Bell from 1994 at 12 million. Wish You Were Here from 1975 at 23 million, The Wall from 1979 at 33 million, and The Dark Side of the Moon is Pink Floyd's best-selling album ever at over 50 million albums
Damn.
sold.
I would
I
like
think
to
it's
hold up.
but I think it's notable here that in the top 5, we don't have any best ofs.
I was just gonna say that. Like,
Best-
can you imagine a
you have
best
to
of
go-
Floyd?
You have to go down to
I-
number 7 to get a best of. Yeah.
Nice. Congratulations, Floyd.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Floyd has had 30 albums placed on the Billboard 200 chart. 5 of them went to number 1 on that chart. They are The Wall, Division Bell, Wish You Were Here, Pulse, and Dark Side of the Moon. Dark Side of the Moon specifically, this is insane, guys. The Dark Side of the Moon has spent a total of 990 weeks on the Billboard 200 chart. No, not at number 1. It was in number 1 for just 1 week, but it has spent 990 weeks on that chart in total. That equates to 19 years that
Holy
album has been
shit.
on the Billboard 200 chart. And my guess is that you see resurgences, right? It'll be on the chart for a while, then it'll die off, but then somebody will introduce it to their kid, or somebody will see it in a movie or something, and it'll pop back up on the chart. So I thought that was a very, very notable piece of their history. All in all, very, very successful.
Would you list those top 5 again?
Top 5 selling?
Yeah, or whatever. the
5 is
category was.
Animals. 4 is Division Bell. 3 is Wish You Were Here. 2 is The Wall. And number 1 is Dark Side.
So Division Bell is the 94, 93
Yes.
release. David Gilmour and Rick Wright and Nick Mason's Pink Floyd. This is Roger Waters had been gone for a long time.
Yep.
Which I didn't know that was on their top 5. That's blowing my mind.
12
a little bit.
million.
It's a
12
fine
million.
record, but it's not. But anyway, Pulse is a live record from that tour. So the Pulse
Yeah.
tour I went to see in 94. My dad won Father of the Lifetime that year, bought me tickets.
Father of the Lifetime.
Row 30 on the
Ooh.
floor
Wow.
at Bert, you might know better than me. I think it was called Veterans Stadium. It was in Philly.
Oh, dude, the vet! Holy
I know,
shit!
I've never been there, but
I
it's no
I
longer
saw
there.
shows
right?
there.
It's gone. It's
The
gone.
tickets
now,
were
isn't
$60.
it? Yeah.
Pink
Wow.
Floyd,
On
row
the
3
floor.
on the floor, 60
Dude,
bucks. You
the
can't even
vet-
get into an Oasis concert for 60
yeah, I'd
bucks.
say
now.
now $60 is nosebleed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, the vet back in the day, because it's not there anymore, was freaking massive. That
Yeah.
is was a huge ass stadium. I saw Jackson 5 on their victory tour there, and we were in nosebleeds, and with binoculars I couldn't see the fucking screens.
It was so cool. And I was 16, and I remember we'll talk about their quadraphonic concepts, but they were doing it the whole day. Like prior to their concert, they were playing like a bee flying around the stadium, and you could hear it, and the lawnmowers going around, and you could just hear it tracking throughout your head, around your head and to your left and right. And just, I knew a lot about Floyd at the time, but now that was just their thing so much about surrounding the audience with sound. And they did that for like 2 hours before the show started.
That's wild. Well, hey, I think this is a good spot to take a break to hear from this week's sponsor, and we've got a new one this week, a new sponsor to the podcast, which is, we're always happy to try out some new products here and help folks get the word out about their interesting new stuff. Ryan actually got this one, and he said, you guys have probably heard about the GrillBot. Are you guys familiar with the GrillBot? It's this thing. He says he has one. You put this little robot on your grill, and it drives around and cleans it with these high-powered brushes. He said it's really great. Anyway, this week's sponsor comes from the same company. Support for the 100 Albums podcast today comes from the Scrub Butt. Unlike a bidet, which some might argue is already more than enough, the Scrub Butt is a robotic arm designed to handle your most delicate moments with unnecessary enthusiasm. It combines the refreshing rinse of a gentle stream with the precision-engineered bristle action of a toothbrush for your other cheeks. A built-in heated mist feature promises to open the pores, and for other reasons unclear, there's an extendable cup holder. And because it's 2025, of course it has an app. With the Scrub Butt app, you can set your preferred pressure, brush speed, and even choose from a library of ambient soundscapes, from rainforest birdsong to the inexplicable crunch of fresh snow. With Bluetooth connectivity, you can program your scrub butt from anywhere, adjusting the spray angle, bristle firmness, and even syncing your favorite playlist for a truly immersive bathroom experience. Scrub Butt, engineered for the moments that matter most.
I am automatically thinking of the worst songs to have a playlist for this. Like Pantera would not be a good one to have playing while getting the sensitive areas washed.
That's a cool title. I like the title because you have to say scrub butt.
You got the B's back to back.
Yeah.
I picked up on that as well. Well, thank you to Scrub Butt for your generous sponsorship of the 100 Albums podcast. We appreciate it. 100 Albums podcast family, please go check out their products. We wholly endorse them.
All right, so my scrub butt's gonna play Luther Vandross.
Oh boy.
I think mine will probably play Who Let the Dogs Out or something. I don't know.
Yo.
Yikes. Hey, I missed some notes, production notes from Ryan here, from the book that he is oft quoting, Major Labels by Khalifa Sanaa. Quote, "It might be more accurate to call Pink Floyd semi-progressive because the band avoided the highly structured, ostentatiously virtuosic instrumental passages that help define the form of progressive rock."
There's the argument.
There's your argument, Drew. They were responsible for 3 of the best-selling albums in music history, Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, and The Wall, all of which drew some of their immersive power from restraint. The songs seemed to unfurl in slow motion, creating a sensation that many listeners found extra musical ways to intensify. Pink Floyd's vague but robust, ongoing connection to psychedelic drug culture was part of what helped the band retain its underground reputation, even as it was outselling virtually every rock band that was considered mainstream. So I wanted to get that in there real quick. Right before we talked about...
Yeah, in other words, sorry.
That's all right.
Your mouth was open.
I was just about to say good, bad, ugly.
In other words, they're too listenable to be considered prog rock.
Yes,
Because
yeah,
if you
I
really
think-
listen to prog rock, you're going to be listening to things that are funny and weird and awkward.
Well,
and
I mean,
they're
like,
just not.
What like Yes, for example, right? And not Owner of a Lonely Heart, Yes. But like Changes, yes. Where it's just crazy time signatures and there's so much going on. I don't get that same vibe with Pink Floyd, right? There's
Yeah, but
that sense of restraint that the quote had there. I think,
but that's the one thing I appreciate about Floyd.
Oh, me too.
It's not so prog heavy.
It's not.
It has the elements to it, but I mean,
it's also
like,
not 1-4-5 rock chord power chords. You know, like
no,
like
we should
other-
be lucky on some songs that have 1-4-5. I think it's just 1-4 for like a
Yeah,
chunk,
right.
but
2-5, yes. All
yeah,
over.
but at the same time, you know, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan and guitar players, obviously, and Gilmour may not be technically flashy, but when it comes to tone and taste, I will put him up against anybody. I mean, dude is just tasteful and has some great sounds and puts them appropriately, and they're not so flashy. So from that perspective, I'll take Floyd over, you know, Steve Vai and all the technical stuff all day.
That's what he's famous for, man. I mean, they called him in the early days like that. He kept not trying, but they kind of wanted him to emulate what Syd Barrett had done. But I mean, he just inside himself is so big, and I mean, yeah, he's known for that taste and that playing. I mean, he does so much pentatonic work, so much minor pentatonic work, but then he also follows changes in other times, but always just so incredibly tasteful. And some of his solo stuff in the 90s, I think he did On an Island, it was called, and it's got some gorgeous guitar playing on it.
Oh, dude, I looked up his gear because that's the kind of guy I am. He pretty much used Strats, Tellys, good Fender shit. And then as far as effects go, I thought he had so much more. He used Dallas Arbiter Fuzz Face, which is classic. A Color Sound Power Boost, Univox Univibe, which I own a Univibe, not the brand, but the style, because of him and Steve Ray Vaughan. A Benson Echo Rec 2, a Keypex processor for the tremolo, specifically on Money. And then he used an EMS synth processor. As far as amps go, I had always known him later in the career for using Galen Kruger. And I've read interviews with him where he pretty much said, you give me any guitar, any amp, and I'll get my sound out of it. I mean, dude's really good about that. But on this album, he used a Fender amp, a twin reverb, which is a 100-watt amp. I mean, they're loud. And apparently Haas just turned it up loud and ran everyone out of the studio. Also used a high watt, 100-watt head, and then some rotating speakers like a Leslie and a Maestro, and a European amp called a WEM or a WEM, which are really good for cleans. And then a Fender pedal steel, which I was, in the listening on this one, surprised. I always thought it was just regular old, bottleneck slide guitar. I didn't realize the depth that he was into pedal steel, which I thought was really impressive. So going through his gear from a guitar standpoint, I was like, holy shit, this just reinforces how cool and how good he was and thought about sounds and colors and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he played pedal steel live on the songs he recorded it on. He's not joking around. I mean, these guys were, everything about them was innovative in a world that did not have digital tech. And so, all of the emulators in this day were not existent. And so,
but looking at his pedals, like when they did this album in the beginning part of the tour, his pedals were literally just on the stage, willy-nilly. It wasn't until later in the tour for this album that he made a pedal board, had a pedal board made for him where it was all in one unit. So, the progression of just having pedals scattered around the stage to having an actual pedal board, like they were one of the first, I imagine. And so the progression of their live rigs for this concert were absolutely just so interesting.
Yeah, and speaking of SRV, another relation to him is, I read an Alan Parsons quote too that said he just played definitely loud, and so did Stevie Ray in the studio,
dude. Live, he would have amps like 45, 50 watt, 100-watt amps under the stage, not counting the ones he had on the stage, which were 45, 50, and 100 watts going at the same time. I mean, live, he would have 12, 15 amps going, and it was just, it moved to the stage. It was great.
But like the guitar players say, you got to turn it up to get the tone, man.
You do. That's why I use 15-watt amps when I play, so I can turn them up.
My tinnitus says otherwise, bro.
I'm getting old, man.
Yeah. Hey there, 100 Albums family, Bert here. So, real talk. This podcast went really long. Like, really long. So much so that we're going to turn it into 2 separate episodes. Tune in next Tuesday for part 2, the exciting conclusion, where we'll talk good, bad, ugly, as well as get into some nuance of how Pink Floyd built this record. And there might even be an update on Ryan's whereabouts. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Vibe check, guys. What are your first impressions?
There's no vibe like this vibe.
I know this is a visual medium, but this is my vibe for the day.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious right now?
Dang, son.
This is going to be a day. No.
Okay.
So, listeners, just for your own reference, Ron just took a swig of Captain Morgan straight from the bottle.
At 9:30 in the morning.
It is 9:30. No, it's 10. Well, it's 9:30 your time. Yeah.
Right.
On a Sunday morning. So
I considered doing the same with
Woof.
a drink that we used to get in Erie called the Dark Side of the Moon, which was a half and half made with Guinness and Blue Moon.
Ooh, I'd
But-
try that.
Interesting.
Try it on your own. It's it's
Doesn't
It's a-
Blue
it's a
Moon
half
have
and
like
half.
citrus notes though?
yeah, a little orangey. But I didn't go shopping and I didn't feel like it.
Word.
So anyway, back to your point, Ron.